What a pleasure to be with you, too.
Oh, come on. It's not. You're just saying that because you should
corporal
be
punishment.
Okay, do you spank your children?
I'm not allowed.
Would you like to spank your children?
I think that most parents often think about wanting to hit their kids, but that's because it's about you. And it's about your anger. And the hitting of the child is only satisfying to you, only useful to you. And that's something that I'm not saying. That's something that is fact. I don't do it because it doesn't work. I don't do it because I'm married to a beautiful and more sophisticated person who said she didn't want that for her kids. I know for a fact because I did an hour on this in 2020 with the Yale Behavioral Center. They had 30 years of research. You can Google it. A man named Alan Kasdan. There's no question that hitting a kid doesn't make them learn better.
I don't believe that.
Why?
Because I think we tend to sort of get polarized about this. We go to extremes. If you spank someone, oh my gosh, people say it's abuse, you should never do it. And then someone says you should always do it. I think there is a happy medium. I had this conversation with my mother just last night, as a matter of fact. And she said, when I was raising you, sometimes you just would, and as a single mother after my dad died, sometimes you just wouldn't listen. If I yelled, if I gave you positive reinforcement, the only thing that would get your attention is, hey, I am trying to tell you to do something that's going to hurt you. You're running up and down the stairs. Eventually, that running up and down the stairs will hurt you more than me spanking you on.
But you hear what he said? He says attention. It got his attention.
Yes.
Right. Did it teach him not to do something?
Yes, I didn't do it again.
It taught you fear.
So spanking and corporal punishment worked on you.
Yes, but it doesn't matter.
It worked despite it.
Because it didn't. Listen, I went to training with. I hate to do this, with my dog, and fear is the same thing.
Where is that dog now, by the way?
The dog is in South Carolina. That's another story. but it doesn't matter whether it's fear or what have you. I'm saying this because it stops you from doing it. The same thing when my nephew was was about to run in traffic, yelling at him and getting his attention. He's thinking you're running behind him until you say, hey, don't do it again.
It stops you from doing it at that moment. But does it teach you in the long term?
I think that stays with you.
I would submit that a good stern talking to also sends a message from your parents and you actually learn what the lesson is they're trying to
I don't disagree with that.
You can be scared of your parents who are yelling at you or talking to you in a stern voice.
I don't disagree with that. Some kids listen to that, other kids don't. I don't think that there is a Bible on how to, because each individual, that's why it's called individuals.
No.
Because we're all different.
Yeah, look, we're definitely all different, and we can hold hands and we can pray on it later on. What I'm trying to say is this. This is not a matter of opinion. You teach a kid when you hit them, oh, well, that got my attention. No, it scared you. Oh, but I loved my mother and I wound up being fine. You were fine despite that. Despite that happening to you, you were fine.
But even with all that research
is clear.
Yes, and I believe you, but 80% of preschoolers in this country are spanked. Yeah. So the message
because
isn't
it's
getting
easier
out.
For the parent, because it gives us cultural,
well, it's not just
it's cultural, it gives us satisfaction.
But it's not just that, it's that your parents did it to you. And that's what I think that you're arguing, which is that you do what you learn.
But my parents didn't beat me. They didn't abuse me. It was to get my attention. And then people say you should talk to your kids and you should get positive reinforcement. Why can't you say, guess what, little Chris? I didn't want to hit you, didn't want to spank you, but that was the only thing the only way I got your attention.
That's fine. That's a great rationale.
So if you don't do it again, then I won't
know.
have
It's
to
also
spank you.
teaching a child that violence has a necessity sometimes in life.
I don't think it's violent.
See, my issue with it is
you're hitting someone. How is it not violent if you're hitting someone?
Spanking, this is not violent. That's not violent.
But what is it then? What is it?
It's
other than an invitation to a butt kicking from camera up.
What's more violent is if I get hit by a car. What's more violent is if I fall down the stairs and break my head.
Sure,
That's more violent.
I understand that you have to grab a child at the moment of a crisis, but I would also say that what I think is interesting and that parents don't always realize is that as parents, you hold all the cards. You have all the power. You tell your kid when they're going to eat. You tell your kid when they're going to go to bed.
So we should starve our kids? We should sleep deprived?
So because there's that power differential, you can do whatever. You don't have to hit them. You hold all the power. So you could take away something. You could take away a privilege. You could send them to their room. You could tell them no more television. Whatever it is, you don't have to rely on hitting.
But listen, I want to make this perfectly clear. I'm not saying, I think that should be a last resort. And I think over the last couple of days of watching what's going on and doing research and looking at the pictures from Adrian Peterson, I have evolved on this because I think, hey, you know, you can spank your kid. But I think that we as a society need to re-examine that. But I don't think that it's something we should say, oh, in all cases you should do it. We should not do that.
But when you say you've evolved on it, that means what?
Because you know, my initial reaction was, well, as Chris said, as a kid, this is how I was treated, and I saw, you know, the evidence for, at least for my own personal, you know, experience is this. But I think that we need to re-examine that, and especially for me as an African American, because the question is, where did you learn that from? Was that learned from the slave master, getting the switch, being beaten? Is that,
how is that a rationale? Help me with
is.
this.
No, because that's a conversation.
Ignorance? How is it? I keep hearing this. Well, you know, maybe it was passed down from slave culture. Why would that be a rationale to continue a practice like this? Isn't it the last thing you want to continue?
That's when you had, some people had to go and get the whip. That's part of.
That's why not break that cycle?
No, that's what I'm saying right now. That's what I'm telling you.
But I'm saying I keep hearing it as a justification for culture.
I don't think it's a justification. I think it's part of the story. It's part of the narrative now. Yeah. It's part of something that we need to examine.
One of the things that I heard
it's not a justification.
Was that it was part of the culture, maybe, and that by now saying we shouldn't do it, it sort of indicts your grandma and it indicts your mother in a way that you don't want to do.
But it's not just the South. It's everywhere. And how do we know?
Yeah.
The law recognizes one ability to hit outside of self-defense, and it's a child.
Yeah.
State to state it varies. Some states allow paddling in school, but New York State allows it with an open hand. It is so primitive. My one regret about the coverage so far that we've been doing this, we've been covering it very heavily, and I believe well. This is one of those actual, hackneyed phrase, it's a teachable moment. And what we're doing is we're relying on a cultural stereotype about how we make people good people. That it just doesn't hold water anymore.
See, I think that's what I mean by the extreme. How do you make people good people? It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or a good person because you don't listen. That's really not it. In the moment, people react. And as I said, you have to do what you have to do. I don't really think
you don't have to do it. What does that mean?
You have to
examine what you're saying.
Okay,
just because it sounds
fine. You don't have to do it. And then I fall down the stairs and I break my head.
So you think that the thing that keeps you from falling down the stairs is the fact that someone beat your ass? That's why you think you didn't fall down the stairs?
In that moment, yes, of course.
But that's different than discipline.
You're saying someone beat my ass, but that's not, someone didn't beat my ass. My mom spanked me. That is not a beating. There is a difference.
I think that what we've learned is that children will mimic any behavior. Whatever behavior you model for them, they'll mimic it. So if you spank them, then you as an adult will spank your children. If you yell at them, you'll yell at the kids on the playground. Oh, that's my point. In fact, they say that it heightens aggression.
Of course it does.
Who have been subjected to corporal punishment,
yes,
it heightens their aggression on the playground.
A spanking doesn't.
They're mimicking.
But also, they'll mimic you. If you ignore their bad behavior, they're going to ignore you. But same thing.
Yes, it's whatever you model for them.
Actually, if you ignore their bad behavior, it usually curtails it because most of the time the bad behavior is a reaching out for attention. But put that analogy aside.
So why not if you spank them then
let me ask you, I think in the moment it scares them. In the moment they don't want to do it. In the moment they don't want it to happen again. But let me ask you this, Don Lemon. When you were a kid, after one of those episodes would happen, would you never do it again, or would you think to yourself, I have to figure out how to do this where I don't get another spanking?
Honestly?
Be honest.
Probably I would never do it again, but knowing how bad I was, it was probably a combination. I'm not kidding you.
I think you're hedging because it undercuts your position. I think because that's what the research shows.
We're being honest here. I told you, I've evolved over the past couple of days. No, I wouldn't do it again because I didn't want to get in trouble.
But you must have done it again because you kept getting in trouble.
No, but it was for different things.
But that's the point.
See, Don is interesting because 48 hours ago he started with, it worked on me, I fell in line, it works on us. This is our culture. And now tonight you are saying something
I wish
different.
Everybody was evolving as quickly as Don is.
Yes,
the problem is they're not.
And I want to get this clear. It's not just, it's prevalent in the African American community. And the guys that you're saying, thank you. It's prevalent everywhere, and it's not about socioeconomics either.
When this guy Alan Kasdan, I want people to look him up. I don't have any monetary interest in throwing his name around, although it is Yale, Behavioral Center. I did go to Yale, but I'll tell you this. He said this to me, and I think parents, everybody needs to keep this idea in their head. He said, "You want to spank your kid? Go ahead, spank your kid. But know this: you're doing it because it makes you feel better, because it does nothing."
Excuse me.
Get on the Dragonaut, Calabar! Spare another stroke, make the bastard see some blood, huh? Yay!
Male Negro, answers to the name of Take, property of Mr. Winslow Granger, guilty of stealing one tortoiseshell comb. First offense, punishment by public flogging, not more than 20 strokes. Hey!
Harder, you bastard!
Drive on!
Ah, Captain Shanks, welcome.
Let him go, damn it. Let the bastard go. I'll live to regret it, mind you. I would have branded him, but they on his backside in the middle of his lily white face.